Hey guys, and welcome to Smash University. Of course, Coach's Corner once again. And today we are going to be talking about Banjo, right? We've seen a lot of great stuff from this character as of late. People have been talking about the hypothetical Banjo, the task Banjo, for quite some time. But now we're seeing something, a bit more stuck in reality, right? So pretty excited to talk about this character. But before we get into it, of course, feel free to like, follow, and subscribe, and click that bell icon. We definitely want to start pushing more content on this channel, and we want to build out some more great stuff for you guys for the sake of education out in this community. For platform fighters and fighting games in general, right? So go ahead and show us some love and make it happen. But yeah, let's get into this. First and foremost, we've got a very special guest here. You want to go and introduce yourself to the people?
Yo, what's up, guys? I'm Juanpi. I might be known by most of you as Chag's coach or General Palutena coach in Ultimate, but I do play a lot of Banjo. He's one of my favorite characters, and I have been playing him on and off since he came out, and I'm probably the best English-speaking Banjo right now. I don't want to say that for certain because there's a bunch of good ones, but that's about where I'm at with him right now.
Right on, right on. And obviously we got the usual suspects here. We got Ramses, of course. Ramsey, how you doing today?
Doing well. Happy to be here. How are you, Bam?
We live in, man. Can't complain.
Living
Can't
okay.
complain. It's funny enough. I was just starting a multiverses video right before this, so I'm about to finish that afterwards. But yeah, it's a good timeline, man. It's a good timeline, and I'm happy to be around good people and talk about this character, man. Cause I'm really interested to hear everyone's thoughts. And of course, Tony, my man, always hidden away, giving the secrets to humanity, man. In the corner, what's up, man? How you doing, Tony?
So easily forgotten. Actually, I've been very much enjoying the various responses to the multiverses releases while we were on the way here. So
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
yeah,
it's another great day over here. What can I say?
Yeah, for sure, man. For
Best
sure.
dressed in the room for sure.
Oh, thank you.
Man,
Wait.
without question.
I love Florida so much. I got to walk in a light rain this morning. I think there was a tornado warning about noon, and then I walked home and there wasn't a cloud in sight. I couldn't ask for more.
Yes,
I
that's
missed
what
it so
you
bad.
need.
Yes, big fan. Big fan.
So let's get into it, man. Let's start talking about Banjo, right? I think from my point of view, right, we saw this character kind of initially come out, and I know a lot of people felt like the character had some cool things here and there, right? Obviously being able to like, you're talking about like the neutral B, right? You're talking about some of the disjoints, right, from doing everything as well, and there was like, okay, this character, um, you know, may be solid, right? You have these jumps, right, and they're short enough where you can kind of mix people up. Obviously, you had the DLC mechanic with the feathers, right? Being able to go through and people wanted to see some things happen with the character. And then we always talk about how items are such a strong tool to have in this game, right? Period. Any Smash game, when you have an item and the tech ceiling goes up, and there's a lot of things that you're probably going to be able to see later down the line for that character's lifespan, right? And their meta. But then it kind of fizzled out. We didn't really see anyone do anything with the character for some time. And a lot of people just kind of were like, "Oh, this character, there's no way this character can be good." And now we're kind of fast forwarding here, So it's interesting to see because I think that when you initially look at everyone's thought process of Banjo, it seemed like the character had pretty solid stuff, and it's kind of like this character can't be that bad, right? And but the results weren't showing it, and that stuff takes time though for that kind of character. So I'm happy to see this. I think some people are surprised at seeing the character do well and seeing some success. Um, but I always felt like there was the factor there on my side. But I mean, Tony, what do you think, man? What were you thinking about this character from day one until now?
I thought Banjo was trash. I lack vision for the character. I can certainly see situations here and there, and there's some decent tools like grenade, obviously. Like a big fan of Banjo's down tilt and forward tilt, things like that. But for the most part, it's just as I think we've established on this channel, I have a fairly strong bias towards proactive plans that just win the game on the spot, and that is basically the antithesis of Banjo for the most part. He does not have something where he's just well, if you don't know the answer to this one thing I'm gonna do, then you've already lost the entire set. So I experimented with the character a little bit. I was like, this definitely is not something I want to.
Not a Tony character.
Yeah, this is not a Tony character at all. So now there have been characters where I could see the vision where, well, if there's just a few things missing here, I remember first seeing Mithra and I was like, well, this character's not quite there, but I can see them making a few adjustments, finding a few setups here and there, and then this character's going to look a lot better. Solve some just small holes with the character's game plan. Banjo has more holes than things to fill them with, so I still, to be fair, don't have the strongest opinion of Banjo, but he very much has proven to have the ability to push the tools that he does have into success, and that's inarguable at this point. Ramses, what do you think?
Jeez. Okay, so I'm gonna lead my opinion off with a bit of a disclaimer. So I play Shulk, and I'm of the opinion that Banjo actually does pretty well against Shulk. I see the nod. That's good because the Banjos I've seen very divided opinion. My local Banjo's like, this is the worst matchup in the game. You just hold shield and he cannot do anything. And I was like, not sure if that's how it works. Either way, the way I see Banjo is that he's a bit of a well-rounded character that comes up short in just a little bit in everything he does. Like his camp game is just a little undertuned. It's like the way he gets his item out, it's a little too easy to interact with. The reward of his long range pre-gold blaster or whatever it's called is a little bit too low. I feel like his tilts are a little too unsafe. His kill power a little bit too lacking. His damage a little bit too low. His mobility a little bit right. And I feel like there's nothing really that, like Tony said, lets him take the initiative and kind of dominate in any individual space. And so the nice thing about Banjo, in my opinion, is that if there is an aspect of the game where you notice that you are better developed than your opponent is, then you can probably abuse that to a win because he has so many different areas that he can interact with, right? So a character like, for example, Palutena will not really have good ground game, whatever you do. And like Banjo has serviceable camp game, serviceable rushdown, serviceable everything, but it's all not quite there. And so my opinion of Banjo, I wouldn't say it's trash, but I think he is very, very dependent on matchup experience, even more so than most other characters. Because if you think about something like Snake or Steve, they often have they have a lot of unique dynamics, but the dynamics are relatively self-contained. And while Banjo is less unique, he is more well-rounded, so generally you need to be aware of more dynamics to be able to consistently beat all sorts of Banjo players. Now the upside is most Banjo players only know a few dynamics themselves, and so it practically oftentimes you don't even need to know that much. But on paper, the character I think is a lot more multifaceted than people give them credit to. So yeah, that's my general take on Banjo. I think overall the character is not great. I still think he's not great, but we'll probably get into that and into Toriguri's success. Did I pronounce? Is it Toriguri?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I got it. Cool. But my starting position for today is that I'm a non-believer. I'm curious to see where we're gonna end up though.
Yeah, I'm actually excited to see because I mean, it looks like for the most part, right, the non-believers, right. So I mean, Tony definitely non-believer, Ramsey non-believer. I'm definitely someone who has believed in the potential of the character to an extent. I've had one of my homies, Kadaj. He loves playing that character as well. Yeah, shouts to Kadaj, old brawlhead. And so we kind of like the theory craft and all the stuff with that. And I do think, to your point, like what you said, the character being one that is multifaceted, it's a character that was going to be better as time progressed because people have a better understanding of the game, so they understand what aspect of the character they can actually abuse in the particular matchups or particular like what a player's strengths are, etc. Right? So I do think that does coincide with why we're seeing the character do some things now. But Juanpi, let's talk to us, man. Right? You are the one with the banjo knowledge. Okay, so
Looks
bless us, heathens. Let us know why we should be believing.
I've got a lot of convincing to do today.
Yes.
But you guys have already set the realistic expectations for me. Like I'm gonna say it up front. I don't think he's a sleeper top tier. He's not the Steve killer. He's not the new meta, anything like that. But I think the general narrative, at least among the English speaking community, is that he has like individually strong tools, right? Like down tilt is strong, grenade is strong, Breagle Blaster, the kill setups are strong, but no one had found a way to kind of combine those things into a game plan that had any sort of cohesion, right? Because it's kind of fundamentally opposed to be a character that wants to zone you out with a strong projectile and also a character that wants to like anti-air you with a ground move, right? Or like play CQC with my tilts, right? Those are two kind of different characters. So like what Ramses said is like the hard part about being the well-rounded character is that you have to understand how to specialize in each matchup about what tools of yours are the most important, right? So in some matchups, grenade should be in front of me. In some matchups, grenade should be in my hand. In some matchups, I should be using my down tilt proactively. In some matchups, I should be anti-airing with my aerials. I should be naring your jumps and so on, right? So it's the challenge of him is putting all of those things together and game planning for matchups in a way that utilizes your tools and is also proactive enough. Like Tony said, he struggles with being proactive and finding kills. So like say I can nair your jump in 5 times in a row, but that doesn't lead into anything unless I can play the advantage after in a way that kills you, right?
Yeah, no, definitely good points there for sure. And I love that you're talking about too in terms of like how you need to even play with grenade, right? Whether it's in your hand or having it behind you, etc. And I think it's interesting because I know some people in the past too when they saw a grenade. Obviously, a lot of people just compared the two because he has a grenade and he has a grenade, right? In terms of like Snake, right? And so obviously, kind of simple comparison. But I do think there is some kind of deeper nuance there too because. Just like even with Snake too, right? For a long time, we saw this character. There was kind of hardships in terms of combining both styles, right? You talked about the CQC, right? And then also kind of the traps game and setup. And a lot of times, we had majority of the Snake players would fall into one or two categories, right? Where they'd be like, okay, my CQC is pretty good, or it's like, hey, I'm MVD and I'm throwing out these traps and I have a really great, set game, and and it's like, all right, if when it comes down to boxing, though, if you get in close, man, I'm gonna be jammed. But if you don't know how to get in, well, hey, I don't have to play a game against you. You lose, right? And I do feel like that's a great point to bring up because I think that Banjo kind of had that as well, where like there's probably some people who are kind of a bit better in the CQC with the character, but you're not getting enough reward, and there's some better people who are doing the traps, but again, they're not getting enough reward, and you really have to combine both for that character to really be pushed to the next level.
Right, yeah, and I think the comparison to Snake Grenade, obviously, it's easy to make because they both blow up. But I think the main advantage that Banjo has is that it blows up on contact, right? Which is something that Snake doesn't have access to. So he doesn't. Snake has to cook his grenade for I think it's like 2.5 seconds, however long it is, before it becomes a hitbox that's actually threatening to the other player. Whereas as soon as I have the grenade in my hand, Banjo is blessed with a really, really good item throw. It travels really fast. So as soon as I have that, I have like a Fox dash attack style burst option that pops you up in front of me. And it's not that long, right? The timer on the grenade is pretty short, but it creates a window where I have this burst threat in front of me that you have to respect, which I think is what differentiates the two tools, at least in terms of comparing it to Snake.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically had someone ask me recently about how they can treat their opponent going for a setup and they're essentially in their face as a rock paper scissors interaction, and the context I believe was actually Richter putting out a back air, and so the idea was viewing that as a setup move because when you use that in conjunction with a retreat, it's something that you can't really beat once it's started directly. You just either have to take advantage of the resources they spent or you need to anticipate it and then attack in advance so that they don't have the setup time. And so the way I view Banjo's grenade pull essentially is a form of setup that usually works best in how it relates to other or how the opponent's setup works. So, like using Diddy Kong as a matchup example, both of these characters are going to pull an arc item that they have to then use an additional movement to acquire. But the difference between Diddy and Banjo is that Banjo has other things that he can immediately switch into, like Breagle, to go ahead and essentially interact with the opponent. Whereas Diddy requires either another movement option or for Banjo to already be in range for his interactions there. So the idea there is that Banjo can set up. Banjo's projectile will immediately begin acting in its own way because grenade bounces, whereas Banana just falls and lands. And then in conjunction with the rest of Banjo's toolkit, it allows him to continue using setup or other forms of pressure with relatively little cooldown between these actions. So there's less time spent transitioning into other actions that you have to do. But obviously, there's going to also be matchups where this isn't necessarily true. Like, for example, Game & Watch. You don't want to just be running away and just letting him have free access to your grenade because it's probably not going to pan out too well for you. But the idea here is that, like Juanpi said, the character wants to transition into what it's looking for based on the context of the actual opponent and the matchup and what they're doing. So my question to you, Juanpi, is do you have a relatively simple way to view this paradigm for our viewers?
So in terms of what to prioritize as Banjo, I think the general rule of thumb is you want to understand how the character interacts with grenade. So are they trying to catch it? Are they trying to swing at it? Are they trying to move around it? Are they trying to use a specific special move? And I think the commonality in all of his worst matchups is that the character's natural game plan just kind of automatically beats it. So, for example, someone like Olimar is like, you are already throwing Pikmin at me regardless of what move I'm using. So if I press down B as you press side B, the Pikmin just eats my grenade. And that's a positive trade for Olimar, like the majority of the time, unless the grenade hits him too, right? So in the matchup, the first question that should be asked as Banjo is, what is my opponent doing when I pull grenade? And then what follows that is the tool that I use to beat their response, essentially.
So in that example, what would Banjo be doing to essentially take advantage of Olimar wanting to throw those Pikmin?
Okay, disclaimer, this is Banjo's worst matchup. So I'm going to make him sound really bad. But you almost never want to leave grenade in between you and Olimar because that's just a bad investment of time to pull it to begin with. So what Torii does, because he plays a bunch of Olimars in Japan, that's the character is strangely popular over there, right? Is he will platform camp and only pull grenade at full hop height from the side platform. So on PS2, like full hop towards the center and then pull a grenade as he's up there. And then he'll use that on his landing mix-up to create an opportunity. But the timing window for that is really limited. And if the Olimar player sees this setup ahead of time, they can obviously put a hitbox there or fight the landing, etc. Right?
Okay, that makes sense. So, follow-up question is, could you give us an example of a matchup where that's more effective for Banjo? So, something he actually wants to see.
Off the top of my head, I think characters that really struggle with grenade are characters that are both stubby and don't have great air mobility. So, say someone like Luigi, for example, is if you put the grenade in front of him, he doesn't want to jump over it because his air mobility is really bad, and he can't use a move that's not a projectile that beats it, and his projectiles are a bad time investment for him because Banjo gets to do stuff behind grenade while he's fireballing it, for example. So his options are to shield it, or to play defensively behind it, or to catch it, and all three of those things kind of rotate in a way that lets Banjo control the pace of that interaction. So Luigi has to make much larger commitments that don't reward him very much by faring into the grenade or dash attacking into the grenade. And those interactions are much more favorable for Banjo than they are for Luigi.
Okay, that made a lot of sense. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask the question.
Ask the question.
What differentiates Torii from the other Banjos? What is it that he does that makes the character work seemingly so much better?
So the thing that I was saying before about how no one has been able to mix those game plans and also progress his advantage into a way that kills, that is the part that he is by far the best at, is the way that he finds kills, either with Breagle or with two frames or with his ledge traps. I think he has the ability that nobody else has to condition his opponent with the projectile setups into a way that sets up for his kill setups. And that is also like just a gigantic information advantage, because he knows how Breagle Blaster transitions into kills better than anybody else, and he knows how Grenade leads into kills at ledge better than anybody else, right? So one thing that he's pretty notorious for, at least in my experience watching Banjo, that no one else does, is he will pull the Breagle Blaster, and what that does is like the first egg is already going towards the opponent, so they're incentivized to jump into the space in between the egg and Banjo to try to punish. So he'll pull the Breagle Blaster and he'll walk backwards, and then use the Breagle Blaster as like a whiff punish tool on the approaching aerial. And then if that's under a platform, that sets you up for a platform tech chase Wonderwing, and he'll find a ton of kills like that. Like in his set against Leo, I think he found like 3 kills in a best of 5 with just that setup.
Yeah.
Do you think finding kills is kind of like the Banjo struggle when you look at other Banjo players?
Yeah, in comparison, the biggest element of the gap between him and the rest is easily the kill difference. Okay. Because for me, like, I will like pretty frequently get people to like 160, 200+% and kill them with like a stray back air or something. And I don't think I saw him kill above 160 like once.
Okay.
At LBC.
That's pretty crazy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, those tech chase one rings, he got so many of those, like you said, man. That shit was hype, dude. The amount of times he was able to get those.
Is there a way to play around those tech chase Wonder Wings, or is that just pure coverage?
So if I, as Banjo, side B at the same time as your tech option, assuming you're in the center of the platform, it covers tech in place, it covers get up attack, and it covers roll away. And it won't cover roll in if we do it at the same time. But if I can adjust my timing to cover roll in. So it is essentially a timing 50-50. But since you, as the defending player, probably don't know this, I can just do the timing that covers the other 3 options, and I win almost all the time.
That makes sense. And then for a lot of his two-frame setups, I think he usually uses his setup tools to actually condition and line up that timing. Can you give us some examples of how that works?
So the main way that I can influence as Banjo the opponent's angle of recovery for a 2-frame is I can use not the Breagle Blaster, but the first egg. I can use eggs to burn your resources, that is to make you drift back, to make you use a move, to make you double jump, etc. And then what Torii will do usually is that he'll put 1 egg at an arc that makes you burn a resource, and then he'll put Grenade at the ledge. So to catch a character, say, for example, a Roy that has to recover directly to ledge with an up B, the Grenade will intercept you, and then that's a 2-frame punish into whatever he's ready for, whether that's fair or side B or back air. And if that fails, then he still is at the ledge, ready for a ledge trap.
So what are Banjo's ledge traps like, if you don't mind?
So it depends on how much time I have to get a grenade ready most of the time. So if there is, like, if say I have as much time as I want, I can short hop grenade and then Z drop it right at the ledge, and that grenade explosion will hit ledge hangs and then combo into an aerial. So that is how I force the opponent to act on a specific timing. Without grenade, it's down tilt will cover both neutral get up and roll because of how long it is on basically everyone that isn't like the 3 best rolls in the game. It's like We Fit, Falco, and one other one.
Lucario.
Something like that. Yeah. On almost every roll, it covers both super well, and then his ground moves conditioned for jumps, which Torii will abuse by running to the ledge and doing turnaround up tilt to catch jumps at the timings that he conditions.
Okay.
And I am really bad at doing that myself. I don't understand how to condition both the option and the timing in the way that he does, but he gets kills off of it.
That sounds super specific for sure. Does up smash not catch jumps, or is it just too committal?
It's more committal than he would like, and also up smash is way weaker than up tilt.
That's fair. Yeah. Go ahead, Tony.
Oh, I was gonna just ask a question. I remember, speaking of Leo at the best of 5, I remember I think the set finished with him actually getting a forward air on the ledge trap. Now on those grenade setups, are those DI mix-ups, or does it just confirm into Banjo's imagination?
So something like, to compare it to Snake Grenade sends straight up. So as long as Snake is close enough, it'll combo into whatever he wants. Banjo Grenade sends up and away from the opponent. So if it hits you on if it hits you on your left side, it will send you up and to the left, and vice versa if it hits you on your right side. So where that becomes complicated is if the grenade is being held, where it's like I can't really tell based on the character model if it's on my left side or on my right side. But if I'm throwing it at you, it usually sends you up and away from me. But since most people are DIing in because they don't know that, it just looks like it sends straight up and then combos into forward air.
That's fair enough. Okay. Lots of technical talk. I want to ask a more generic question. So you said, okay, Banjo he's not the Steve killer. What do you think Banjo's place in the meta is? Like, is there a world where we're gonna see more Banjo? Is there like relevance to the character, or is he purely like a hobbyist character?
I think he is in the bucket of characters that definitely requires a good bracket to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think besides Steve, the top level meta is actually pretty friendly to him right now, because at least in North America, like his worst matchups are Olimar, Falco, the Animal Crossing characters, Sora, and Steve.
Wait, why Sora?
You can counter Wonderwing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
And so none of those characters besides Steve are all that popular at the high and top level in North America. Like you'll run into a Falco here and there, but besides that, like they're kind of non-existent. So, and the characters that do exist, actually, the characters that are going up right now, like Corrin, for example, I think Banjo does really well into Corrin.
What does really well mean? Like winning, or like it's even? Is that really like? Are we talking a mid-tier good matchup or like a good matchup?
I would cautiously say it's a +1.
Ooh.
Okay.
I imagine the 2 frames are really easy against Corrin.
The same thing I said about down being the ledge against Roy.
Right.
The exact same thing works against Corrin.
Makes sense.
And down tilt outranges all her landing aerials and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be worried about pin when she's landing, but that's kind of about it.
Right.
So, like, one of the reasons that Corrin's recovery is so effective in practice is because her up B just so happens to slightly disjoint almost everything that normally 2 frames in other matchups.
And then there's Banjo.
Banjo.
Time to cook, dude. Time to cook.
Banjo has like a woodpecker, literal level down tilt specialization there, where it's just like, well, this is gonna ruin your day in particular.
Doesn't
that
Wonderwing
really ugly?
Doesn't Wonderwing also 2 frame, or is that fake?
The 2 frame is only on the strong hitbox, which is a little bit bigger than the weak hitbox, and it's higher than his other options.
I see. So it's more matchup specific. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me more about the meta. So he does well against Corrin, sure. What are some other characters like current meta that you think he does well against?
So I think he does well against almost every sword character for kind of the same reasons as Corrin. Like I know Torii also thinks he beats Cloud. So I would have been beats Cloud, yeah. I would have been really excited to watch him versus Spargo, but that did not happen.
Aegis too?
Yet. Did not happen.
I think Aegis is one of the tougher ones.
Yeah, that sounds rough. Foresight kind of messes with projectiles too. Yeah.
Foresight, and whenever Pyra sees a grenade, she just chucks a side B at it.
Yeah.
Oh, fair. Yep. Fire properties. Yep.
Yeah.
Fire's good.
I think he does well against the stubbier characters, like we said, like with Luigi, like Mario, Yoshi. Those are all characters that he is like pretty capable against, and then he can fight Snake pretty well.
R.O.B?
No, I don't think that one's winning. Oh, R.O.B is it's okay. It's I think I'm coming around on that matchup. I used to think it was really bad, but I watched Torii beat Zamba at a Japanese tournament.
Yeah.
And I've been practicing it myself, and I've labbed a lot of item combos with the gyro, and I think he definitely can play in that matchup. It's just that one takes a lot more than his other like -1s.
Fair enough.
All right, so you see it as a -1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then stage-wise, what do you think that Banjo tends to prefer against the meta?
Currently, I used to think his best stage was Smashville for the same reason as a bunch of other zoners where they like to set up under the platform, like say like a Samus or something like that. But right now, I've really been enjoying the biplat stages, PS2 and Small Battlefield. I think Small Battlefield in particular is probably his best stage in a lot of matchups, where there's a lot of ledge trap setups that only work because of the Small Battlefield platform. Because you can put an egg on the platform and it slows down when it bounces on something. So it'll bounce off the platform onto the ledge and cover neutral get up and ledge hang for a really long amount of time. And I get to set up behind that pretty often. And PS2, the platform is a little further away from the ledge, but the same idea does apply in some situations. And also, like we said earlier about the kill setups, being under a platform enables a lot of kill setups for Banjo that wouldn't usually be there.
So I've heard that Banjo hates Battlefield though because he just gets circle camped. Is that true or is that fake? I just want to know.
Only against the like super mobile characters. Like you would never take Fox, Falco, Greninja, Zero Suit type characters to Battlefield. You would never take Palu there. You wouldn't take Mario there for different reasons.
Yeah, the other thing that makes Battlefield really annoying. Yeah, no, fair.
But against characters where he's not getting super mobility gapped, I don't think Battlefield is that bad.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So I had a question. I kind of alluded to it early on, right, in the intro. But I think for a lot of people, right, we talked about before the mythical task, freaking Banjo. I know you talked about was it, how do I pronounce the name? Torii, right?
Yes.
For him, in tandem with the ledge traps, right? He's also being able to excel, right, with Beagle Blaster and finding confirms out of that. What do you think is the next step there? I mean, obviously, we're not going to see that task stuff anytime soon, but do you think there are some more confirms or more setups from Beagle Blaster that we will see that can push the character to the next level? Like, where do you see that meta moving for Banjo in order to, just rise up the ranks?
Yeah, so there's a couple of small things that he's not implementing that he could be, which is it's actually ironic because there's two main ways to cancel the Beagle Blaster like quicker than normal. There's a smash input version, which is the hard one that he actually does, and there's a much easier version that you can only do when you're landing, which is essentially kind of like L canceling and melee type of input that he doesn't do. And it is pretty apparent to me when he's jumping around with Beagle Blaster that it would be a good thing to add to his gameplay. But he kind of just walks around with it more than he'll put it away in those instances, and I don't really understand why. And there is another thing that he's missing where you can turn around as you put it away, and that enables some combos. Like you can do Rising Beagle Blaster into turn it away, turn around as you put it away, double jump back air that he also doesn't do, and he misses some kills at the ledge because of that sometimes. But like he's like 85% of the way there. I'm just being nitpicky,
Right.
So,
but for the most part, sorry, Tony, go ahead.
I was just gonna add on a quick addendum to that. I know you've mentioned this before on Twitter, but do you think that Banjo can be pushed further with, like, say, Smashbox and such, like alternate controller types?
I'm not familiar enough with Smashbox to say. I'm sure, like, you all have seen like the task videos of him like shooting in repeated directions over and over. I'm sure that would be marginally easier on a Smashbox because you don't have to move the stick from like one side to the other over and over. It's just pressing buttons. But besides that, there is no specific tech I'm aware of that is significantly easier on Smashbox.
Yeah, I think the things that people usually see was there was a modification that added macros in.
that was fucked up.
That was hilarious. That was hilarious, dude. That was a good time. I'm not gonna.
That was a bad day on Elite Smash.
That was my personal one of my favorite times.
Yes, thank you, Tony.
Just seeing so many people sharing just wonderful clips of. So I just ran into this random thing on Elite Smash, and it would just be some absurdity, just absolute atrocious, like demigod monks coming out of retirement just on Elite
Love that.
Smash.
Love that.
Yes.
I've been waiting for this day. Just
Yeah.
running up on people.
Yes.
That might be why Torii plays with the like the $15 Walmart controller. Do you guys
Yeah.
see that?
Yes.
Maybe there's a macro
wait,
button in there somewhere.
Wasn't that
Was
hurt?
that him? I thought that
It
was
was
her.
both of them.
Oh,
Both
both
of them?
Fantastic.
Snake really is just like Banjo, for real. Okay.
It just goes to show, folks, controller is just a crutch.
Shut
Just a
up.
crutch.
Go
Go to Walmart. GameStop.
Don't let Mutes know. Don't
Oh
let
my
Mutes
God.
know. Get him back on the pod. Okay.
The fake controller.
So kind of following up on Toriguri. So it feels like, so to me, the thing that people always complain about regarding Banjo is that he does no damage, right? And like doing no damage doesn't actually matter. It's not like an actual weakness if you can kill, right? So like if your character doesn't do damage but you kill at 60, it's the same amount of interactions than like an Inkling who does like a shit ton of damage but then kills you at 150, right? And so it kind of feels like having a lot of kill setups mitigates Banjo's biggest struggle. And I know we talked about kind of like the dynamic of like Grenade being kind of naturally countered by a lot of his counter matchups. But outside of that, what do you think Banjo's struggles are when played at the level of Toriguri?
I think once you find a player that is as aware of your kill setups as you are, it becomes a lot. So in particular, Goryoka doesn't really play characters that do super well into Banjo. Like he plays Joker and Sephiroth most of the time. He's beaten him with Mewtwo before too, but that was a one-off time. I think someone like Goryoka, who's played Toriguri like at least a dozen times and is more aware of the kill setups than an average like American player would be, it gets a lot harder to find your kills there. But I think that is a layer that hasn't been reached yet because it's like he's so used to playing against you don't know what I'm doing, so I know what the level 1 response to my actions is, but we haven't reached the part where you know that I know about the level 1. Let's play the level 2 now. So that's not something that we've seen yet, I feel.
He hasn't really had to hone it yet.
Right.
Everyone's just still getting clapped by that.
So he's matchup checking people essentially.
I mean,
Yeah.
For now.
You deserve it. If you play a lower mid tier, you deserve that's how you get it.
It was not he's matchup checking people derogatory. It's he's matchup checking people like but from Japan, so it's good, right? Yeah. No, so let's agree. It's Japanese matchup checks. That's skill. So
unironically, there's just an argument. Why shouldn't you play at top tier? And this is genuinely one of the reasons. Like this is a very good reason to unironically play a non-top tier character.
Well,
you can't
depends on your
check
goal.
somebody with Aegis. Like so everybody's played one.
It depends on your goal. If you want results, then there's a lot of merit. So I think like assuming or not even assuming. So from that perspective of like Toriguri versus Goryoka, do you think there's meaningful counterplay once the opponent figures out the kill setups, or once they figure it out, it just kind of nerfs that whole aspect of Banjo and you're back to the struggle?
I think I can only theory craft here, right? Because I've watched him lose sets like that, and kind of the only player that he struggles to kill is like Goryoka and like Ken sometimes. But I think that might just be more about Sonic than about the player matchup. But I think that there is a lot to be said about falling into the same patterns when they work all the time, you know? So perhaps he can deliver the same prompt that he would against another player, like we said, like the Breagle walk back, and then find a different sequence after the initial response that he wants doesn't come, right? So I think one thing that he's been finding kills a lot recently that I have been trying to implement myself is like just a lot of overshoot up tilt, because it's a move that a lot of people aren't comfortable punishing, especially on whiff. Like on shield, it's pretty easy to grab, but if it whiffs in your face, it's faster than a lot of people think it is. So I think the future in regards to kills with him has, as people understand the kill setups better, will have less to do with kills and more to do with finding places to place like low risk moves that will either kill or lead into a kill, something like that.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I can see it. I mean, I say I can see it. I cannot imagine it. I get what you're theory crafting. I don't see Banjo having the tools for that to be a very favorable dynamic, but only time will tell. Only time will tell. The convincing is still ongoing. Let's do that. Let's do it like that.
The jury's out on this one.
So one of the things that I particularly remember thinking while watching him play was that most of his opponents would be thoroughly served by just skipping mid-stage, with mid-stage being defined as above or below the platforms. I think that shuts off a lot of the particularly high-reward Banjo setups. And I think that players like Leo, for example, would have probably fared a little bit better if they were willing to just spend more time in traditionally disadvantageous stage positions and maybe take an extra turn or two there in those spots. Be willing to be corner trapped, things like that. I know you mentioned Briegel Wonderwing tech chases. I'm pretty sure he lost just as many stocks to Leo having a particular jump habit toward a particular stage position that Torii knew about from start to finish of the set, and he just hard read that, positioned himself in anticipation, and then just up tilted it on reaction. So, and that's it's not that up tilt's just that fast. It's that Torii already knew it was coming and had positioned himself in advance. So, once you settle that down to a button press, so obviously there were plenty of players that he played against that didn't have that exact same habit or habits, and he still found KOs on them. But what I noticed in particular was that all of these players did play that mid-stage dynamic. So my question here is, what do you think that Banjo can do to exploit people refusing to essentially pass the platform?
Okay. One, the set before he played Leo, he actually played Lemon, another Joker, and that set was a lot more competitive than the Leo set. I think it was a 3-1, if I remember correctly, and Lemon did a lot of what you're saying. Well, not to the extent that you're describing, but he was a lot more patient in the corner. He would use a lot more projectiles in the corner, a lot more poking before initiating with a jump the same way that Leo would. And I think that style, while it does avoid Banjo's kill setups, it ends up playing a much more low risk, low reward game.
Right.
And when both sides are playing like that, because like when Joker does that, he also loses access to his strongest openings as well, right? He's just playing for gun chip, for an AHA, for like a random back air dash attack type thing, right? When both characters are engaged in that, it doesn't feel like Banjo gets out damaged anymore, because we're both just playing for stray hits. And we're both just playing for little pokes, So I think that takes the game in a different direction, but I don't think that disables what makes Banjo strong, if that makes sense.
And how would you say that interacts with just like the timer advantage eventually leading to Arsene, or the chip damage when they do trade eventually leading to Arsene?
I think Banjo really likes Arsene, as strange as it sounds, because it's so much easier to kill him when he's drifting into you and when he has to recover to the ledge. And like you can make him recover to the ledge so easily with one down tilt, right? So as long as you don't get opened up by something like really silly in neutral, because any interaction that doesn't end into a true combo that kills you, Banjo can just up B and go high like Snake and stall for 4 or 5 seconds, maybe get hit by a grenade and do it again, stall half the Arsene timer. So it doesn't pose as big of a risk to Banjo as it would to a character that has to play a more traditional disadvantage, I feel.
It helps that Banjo's, despite being low damage, also very high hit count combos, generally being conducive toward eating up any meter state, whether that's like Shulk Shield, obviously Arsene in this case, et cetera, et cetera. I'm glad you mentioned his snake-like recovery, because I think that's another thing that really helps Banjo out if you're unfamiliar with the matchup, is that his recovery seems incredibly powerful, but really I think it's more of just unintuitive to deal with. the angles it takes. So it's very easy to see him Wonder Wing from the blast zone and grab the ledge, or to go for an up B from the blast zone and grab the ledge. But I think it's important to note that he essentially has the movement pattern of like I believe it's a castle in chess, and the idea is a rook. Thank you. He has to travel in very straight lines, and so he essentially telegraphs whichever movement option he's going to go for. And I think we saw that more of against like base mage in particular, where base mage could catch him at fairly low percents. And this isn't Jigglypuff exclusive. Any character with the multi jumps that can actually follow his drift and catch him out there can actually seal out the Wonder Wing if it's a low enough percent, and then just kind of escort him into a blast zone or an angle he can't recover from. And so I think that's unintuitive for most players because there aren't many recoveries that are quite like that.
Yeah.
So what would you say Banjo's recovery tends to perform well against?
So I think in positions where like most average positions where you get sent off stage by like a stray hit at 70. So I'm envisioning that type of thing right now. In those positions, the other player kind of has to forfeit either coverage of side B or up B, right? Because if they go off stage to try to intercept my up B, I have the time to react to that and side B to ledge, and vice versa, where if they're waiting at ledge for my side B, I can go high and cover my landing with a grenade. And I think that's the one thing that was kind of missing in your explanation, is that I have 2 jumps as well as Banjo, right? So I can use one jump to like up air or nair you off of me, and then use my second one to position for up B, side B back to the ledge. And I also have a grenade recovery at higher percents. It doesn't send me up at all until about like 120, 130. But once I'm at that point, I have an essentially infinite recovery, and I have 2 jumps with which to maneuver myself into the correct place to use it. So I think there is a lot of dynamics that he can employ to stop himself from getting edge guarded. And also for the vast majority of people that aren't familiar with the matchup, the fear of Wonder Wing by itself will just make them not want to try. But I think it is definitely an underexplored way to exploit him for sure.
Okay.
That reminds me. I know it's a little lowbrow, but I think it is actually entirely possible to grab Banjo out of Wonder Wing, and that if it's not used with a setup, it's actually possible to do this on reaction. Although I don't recommend trying. Which also means that for those at home, that means that it is entirely realistic for you to learn to parry Wonder Wing on reaction. Which is a much easier task, much simpler to time window to reach there. So, my question there
is Tony lagging out?
Tony is dying. Yeah.
Are there any characters that can snatch? Oh dear.
Okay, you're back, Tony. Hey,
oh,
you're back. AI bot Tony back in action.
You were just getting to your question. We caught everything up until that point.
I was having a good time over here. The
Let's have the good time together,
my time
Tony.
pocket.
Yes.
Are there any characters that can actually snatch Banjo out of the Wonder Wing off stage when he's recovering? Like I know you mentioned the villagers.
So the only 2 characters that take a lot of advantage out of that mechanic, or that you can grab him out of it, are Falcon with his up B and Isabelle with the fishing rod. That is one of the freest edge guards in the whole game. You just put the fishing rod out and you reel it back in when I side B to ledge, and I just can't do anything. But besides that, I think like you'll see like if a Ridley player is fishing for clips, they might try it at some point with side B. But besides that, it's not a mechanic that's pretty important, because like I'm side being low enough that your grab won't hit me on the way to ledge for 99% of characters.
Right.
Okay.
She needs it.
I'm gonna jump in because I had this student like 2 years ago, and I still don't know if he was a genius or insane, and it's probably somewhere in between. Juanpi, okay, I need your opinion. Okay, his take was that if you had like a very close like stock one, and you end up at like 120%, you kill them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best thing to do is to go all the way into like the upper right blast zone or left blast zone and just stall there with grenades if they cannot reach you, and you instantly win. Is that like, is he cooking
Literally.
the grenades?
So my problem with it is that it does damage to Banjo too quickly.
Okay.
So each grenade explosion, I think, is 8.6% to him, and that's every like 3 seconds, essentially. So it's by no means an infinite stall, because you will reach a percent where it just kills you eventually. I use it kind of exclusively to stall the last little bit of Arsene. So I'll grenade 2 or 3 times to stop Arsene, and I think that trade for like 16 or 20 damage or whatever it is fair. But using it as a timeout tactic, I don't think it's very high value most of the time.
Enough. Okay.
Not enough time on the clock.
I think it is genius and insane at the same time, though. Like there's a vision there.
If someone pulled that off, that would be really funny.
That'd be so funny. Okay.
Well, wouldn't that be better under the stage so you can stage spike to take longer?
True, but I think
catching the grenade gets more complicated under the stage because it'll bounce on something.
But it's still possible.
It is not impossible.
But you're not saying no.
Yeah.
But you're not saying no.
Look.
Chefs are in the chat. Okay.
I'm not saying.
I just want to see.
I'm not saying counterplay Carlos.
One Breagle shot after taking the stock, and then spend the last minute or two down there. It's Charles isn't here with us, but I want to promote the timeout Banjo on his behalf.
Timeout Banjo. Yes.
True.
Charles is
Speak
here.
for Chuck.
Yes.
Speak for Chuck.
Yes.
I think timeout Banjo would be actually much more realistic if we had like 1 minute shaved off of the timer, because I feel like his pace of play generally leads to something like a 5-minute game, give or take. And if the timer was a more reasonable goal at that point, then I think timeout Banjo would look a lot better. But right now, when his games usually end, there's something like 2 minutes 12, 1 minute 50 left on the clock when they end, and the timer is not a realistic win condition at that point.
Keep that in mind for the Luminosity Rules Committee. We need to make Banjo better.
6-minute timer.
Do
Put in my vote.
Yeah.
I need that.
Bam,
we all do.
That. For sure.
Do it for us.
I've been screaming about a 6-minute timer since 2016 Melee, so...
Yeah. What character was in Melee for you?
I played Puff and Fox in Melee, but I just thought not specifically for Puff. I think timeouts should be part of the game.
Oh, we got Charles.
Yeah.
Huh?
A little Chuck Nasty on my screen there.
Was that Chuck Nasty? Of course, that was Chuck Nasty.
Oh
dude.
my God, the
guy,
man,
dude. My guy,
the legend,
the legend, dude. I gotta make sure Chuck is in here somewhere, dude. Chuck, you be right there, Chuck. There you go, Chucky. Have a good old time. Let me extend Chuck out real quick, dude. Chuck is always with me, dude.
He looks like your stand, like a JoJo stand. Buenos danda. Chuck Nasty.
My goat.
Some of them.
Yeah, man. Of course, obviously. Yeah, I mean, so I would say, like, do you have any kind of last thoughts you want to give to people about Banjo? Because I know that there's a lot of fans when this character first came out that were absolutely devastated because they were like, wow, I was waiting for this character all my life, ever since I played on N64, and here comes Banjo, and I feel like this character just sucks, right? And then obviously now, people are seeing a little light. So, to the people who do believe, you got any words for them? Any words of advice of how they can level up their Banjo gameplay? I know you've talked about obviously ledge traps and the Breagle Blaster, and also understanding different aspects of his game to kind of cover different gaps, as it were, in other characters' game plans. But what else you got for the people?
So first of all, to give an emotional response before a practical one, I'm with you, because I am also one of those people that lost a lot of faith in Banjo and I picked him back up when Torii started doing well. I got really inspired, and I started playing him again. So now for the practical response, I think the most important thing is to not tunnel vision on any one aspect of his play, because where the current Banjos outside of Torii fail is that they are either grenade players or Wonder Wing players or Regal Blaster players, right?
Oh,
So
I feel that. On a spiritual level.
Yes, I feel that. I feel that.
So make your best effort to be a Banjo player and not just a Banjo player that does one thing, and that is the fastest avenue to success with him, in my opinion.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I like it. I like it. Ramses, Tony, any lasting thoughts from you guys?
Closing thoughts. I'll go first. Still not a Banjo believer. I think I think there is what you mentioned in terms of kill power. I think that's huge. So to me, Banjo's struggle has always been, well, like I said, he's like a little undertuned on all his fronts. But more than anything, he doesn't have an insane advantage state. He doesn't have an insane combo game either. It's always somewhere in between, where there's some like pickups that can be deadly or super damaging, and there's some that just don't do anything. Like sometimes you read a jump, you rising Becker, and then you like pull a grenade and ledge trap, and then like his ledge trap is okay, but it's not all that. You get what I mean. And having access to early kills fixes a lot of that. But knowing that it's also something that if we look at like current like max meta, like most developed meta in terms of Banjo counterplay, it's something that even Torii is struggling with. I think that is not great news. Of course, that doesn't mean that that is bad news forever, right? Metas develop. And I'm sure there are ways for Banjo to lead into kills that counteract how people are currently kind of like countering his kills. But my gut feeling is that those new setups are less rewarding, kill less early, are less consistent, require more of a read, etc., and that is all negative. That said, I think it's exciting that the character is finding a bit of a place in the meta. What I think is really cool to hear is that he actually has pretty solid matchups against a lot of the popular characters. Like does decent against Cloud, does decent against Snake. Like these are really really good matchups to have in the current meta. So lots more positivity in my Banjo opinion, but I'll remain on the doubter team for now. I'll be cautiously pessimistic if that is the proper way to describe it. Cautiously pessimistic. But still, Torii, a treat to watch. Really, I think if anything, I'm just happy to get a bit of a new perspective of what makes his play work, because that makes watching him even cooler. So thank you, Juanpi, for that. I appreciate that. Tony.
I'm glad to have made some progress.
Yeah, we're getting there. This is only 1 hour, right? I mean, there's many more hours in a day.
Bring me back when I make a top 8, and I'll make you a believer.
Oh, dude, we'll hold you to that.
Yeah, we'll take a step in the Church of Banjo.
We need to talk about the Palutena to Banjo pipeline, because that's like that's a 1P only, dude. Like no one.
There's actually a couple.
Wait.
There's a few. Yeah. Okay. Shout out Utopian Ray.
Oh
my god.
True? Okay. Hang on. Before I pass it to Tony, tell me, like, what is the vision behind the Palutena Banjo pipeline? Like, is there a logic?
Nair.
It spins.
It spins. It wins. Take me home.
So it depends on which direction you view it, because Palutena really hates Diddy Kong, and Banjo does pretty well into Diddy Kong, so he's an option for a Palu secondary. Banjo really hates Villager and Isabel. Palu does really well against Villager and Isabel. So they cover some matchups, not perfectly, I don't think. There are definitely like quote-unquote more optimal secondary choices, but they do cover some things for each other.
Okay. We'll keep this one on the back burner for when you top 8 that tournament. I'm holding to that one. I'm looking forward to it. All right, Tony, let me know.
That is the most literal mid-off I've ever heard. It's like which mid-tiers are your mid-tiers good against Then you switch to a mid tier to counter the mid tiers. The switch to Incineroar. It'd be like follow the real Palutena memes. So I will say I just wanted to leave off on my personal vision of Banjo. So less a matter of where he should necessarily go, but what I do think Banjo does very well is I think he does a very good job at controlling the opponent's positioning. So even though he isn't necessarily perpetuating his advantage, at the end of the day, you can't realistically avoid being put into any given position if Banjo does want you there, because something all of his projectiles and all of his simple combos do, basically anything involving something he can drift with. So whether it's starting from a Breagle or his Nairs or whatever, he can control where exactly you're going to end up at the end of that combo. And he can kind of just push you off flood style using the Breagles. And we see this especially with like Mega Man pellets. The idea here is that you can kind of vibe check people, close off certain spaces, and use it as a more traditional zoning tool. And so at the end of the day, I think Banjo is one of the better characters in the game at controlling what zone you go to, even if he can't necessarily win the game off of you trying to enter a restricted zone. And so that's my opinion, optimistically, of what Banjo does well. Is I know we discussed trying to kind of avoid some of the niche kill setups, but I think that even if you do try and play to avoid those, that Banjo does actually have the tools to complete into layer 3, to go for a full RPS where he then combos to push you into the places that you are avoiding by reading your avoidance. So thank you for joining us, Juanpi. Your
of course.
knowledge was very helpful.
Thank you for having me.
100%. Yeah, so thank you for being on. We appreciate you. And again, I'm gonna chill again, man. I don't know why Charles didn't do the double, so I'm gonna say it again. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. Again, please feel free to like, follow, and subscribe. And obviously, go ahead and join our Discord too, right? We do have a suggestion box as well, so we'd love to hear from you what you guys want to hear, right? So we can make sure the content is being made towards the people. If Ramses has something to say,
Rate the podcast on Spotify too.
Yes, rate it on Spotify as well. It's
Helps
very,
a lot.
Very important for us. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed. And class dismissed. See you guys next time.